So I was obese, I had fatty liver disease, I had high blood pressure, I had many problems. I had a whole metabolic disease spectrum, so autoimmune disease like eczema. So despite I was a doctor, I couldn't control the disease. In 2 months, I'd lost all my extra kilos. I was not anymore overweight. In 2 weeks, I cut out my medication for the blood pressure, and I haven't seen my eczema since then.
There we go. Okay, welcome. We've got a wonderful guest today, Thanos, and I cannot pronounce your last name correctly, but anyway, you're an MD from Greece. How do you say your last name, Thanos? I would have butchered it a little bit, but Kalispera to you. I guess it's evening, afternoon time, so I did learn a little bit of the little greetings and stuff like that. Welcome. It's good to have you. It's good to see you again. So Thanos and I ran into each other back in August in Marathon, Greece, and you are in a sort of unique position in that you are a doctor promoting carnivore in Greece, which is a rare thing. If not, you may be the unicorn, the only one there. So let me just, if you don't mind sharing your background. I know you did some of your medical training, I believe, in Germany, if I'm not mistaken. But tell us about your medical background. What do you practice? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, I'm based in Athens. Athens is the capital of Greece. I come originally from Thessaloniki. It's the second biggest city. It has its own port. It's a beautiful city, really vibrant city in Greece. And I've studied and finished my studies in the medical school. And I had studied already my medical residency there in Thessaloniki. But due to the financial crisis in Greece, I decided to leave Greece. And it was maybe the lack of learning opportunity too. And decided to leave Greece and go to Germany. And I moved to Germany, and I've in the field of internal medicine. I'm an internal medicine doctor, trained in Germany. The last 10, 11 years, I was in Germany. And I can confidently say that I have already gained extensive experience. I've worked in many fields of the internal medicine. I've made many shifts, working long hours there, and different units like intensive care unit, emergency room. And in a way, I practice the internal medicine as we know. I was a hospital doctor at my beginnings, as we all have to do. And after that, I've worked in a medical practice with other 5, 6 doctors. And that's where I found it better for me, because I could understand on time the problems of the patients at the beginning. If a person would develop a heart infarct, and if a heart attack was going to knock the door, I could find it on time and maybe change the route of the disease. And at one time I've got ill, so I have to say I was always ill. I was always sitting between being overweight and obese, being a guy with always muscle atrophy my whole life. I was on the standard Greek diet, I would say. It's like the same with the standard American diet, even sadder maybe. And I was obese. I had fatty liver disease. With affected blood laboratory values, and diagnosed with liver ultrasound and everything. I had high blood pressure, and I had for 1.5 years, I had to take medication for that reason for a whole year. And I had elevated uric acid levels. I had many problems. I had a whole disease spectrum. And what else? I had many, and that was the biggest problem for me these days. I had autoimmune disease like eczema. Was really horrible. Eczema, alopecia areata is this patchy hair loss, and I've tried their cortisone locally and many times systemically with cortisone capsules or tablets and pills, and I couldn't control the disease. And for the first time, so despite I was a doctor, I couldn't control the disease. For the first time, I said to myself, I'm going to listen to the patients. What are the patients? What do they say about their problems? about these diseases. And I Googled it and I found fora in internet, so websites with solutions and experiences where patients share their experiences. And all these patients were writing about a keto diet. So they were speaking about diets. That was for me remarkable. So how can a diet help for eczema? These days, like 5 years ago, I couldn't imagine it. So many people were writing about the keto diet, paleo diet, or carnivore was really frequently written, and they had really good results. And first, I didn't know what these diets are. I had to Google them, search for them. I found out that they're really heavy fat meat diets, and I asked myself, how could I help myself with my fatty liver disease if I'm going to eat only fats? That was my knowledge these days, these old days. And I've searched, I educated myself, and after 2-3 weeks, I was really confident that would be a solution, because for the first time, I could connect the dots between evolution, between pathophysiology and clinical experience, what we learn in the medical school, we all learned. And I've started and I've lost like in 2 or 3 months. In 2 months, I've lost all my extra kilos. I was not anymore overweight, not only obese, I was not overweight. I haven't got any. In 2 weeks, I cut out my medication for the blood pressure, and I haven't seen my eczema. So that was it. Everything gone. See hair loss. So this alopecia areata, I had this problem like I was 24 years old as I first got it. And since the last 4 years, I haven't had any problems. I didn't take any from my zinc supplements anymore. I don't use them. Maybe I have many thoughts why did help for that too. I had a periocular vitiligo too. This was my I know that you know what that means. So that means that my eyes were really white. Around about my eyes was white, and I don't have any problems anymore there. It's maybe a punctual or something. It's not a big problem anymore. So I can train myself. I have mental health. I'm fit. I train every day or every second day. I do calisthenics. Today I've made my second muscle up on the row. I'm another person.
Yes, it's clearly it's helped you, and it goes against what you were taught probably in medical school and maybe just in the media in general. They tell you. Let me ask you a question, because you live in Athens. It's considered part of the Mediterranean area, and there's some belief that the Mediterranean diet is a lot of beans and pasta and perhaps a little bit of seafood and a lot of olive oil, perhaps. I was just in Greece with you, and I saw a lot of souvlaki and a lot of different lamb, and there's a lot of seafood, obviously, a lot of dairy products, particularly. It's a way the Mediterranean diet is being portrayed to us in the U.S. reflective of what's actually eaten in the Mediterranean. What are your thoughts about that, and maybe what your grandparents might have eaten before everybody got fat, basically?
It's a big subject. It's a big thing. They promote the Mediterranean diet these days, but I don't think it's a real Mediterranean diet. So it was first defined by Ansel Keys, observed in Greece and southern Italy as being a low in fat, saturated fat diet and high in olive oils. So that was the seventh country study. So your people know already about this study, and it was only associated with the reduced risk of coronary heart disease. And over the past several decades, they studied the Mediterranean diet, and the studies have advanced. And the definition changed over the years from the from the suggested Mediterranean diet, from the scientists. So the definition of the Mediterranean diet, I don't think it's a minor issue. It's not a simple thing. They've found many ways to define a dietary pattern. And so including general descriptions or suggestions or dietary patterns, scoring systems, how much flavonoid, for example, flavonoid content, this known pyramid as we know it. But we have I have many problems with that. There's many differences between the veggies that they're in many studies. For example, the 7-country study says other grams of veggies. If you compare it with the other studies like the Predimed study or the EPIC study. Firstly, that. Secondly, it varies. A Mediterranean diet varies between countries. There's not only one Mediterranean diet. There is not only one Mediterranean country. It's a big world. It includes not just Italy and Greece, but also Turkey, Portugal, Spain, all over the Mediterranean Sea, like France, Israel, Jordan, Morocco. Every part of this world has other diet, maybe. Huh? And I have to say, we have many data from, I think Mark Mason had made a really good article, the one who wrote the Blueprint Diet, where we have his summaries already, the studies about the stable isotopes that we have that present in bones from researchers and determine how much protein comes from animal or from plant matter, can say if it's from the terrestrial or marine origin. So we have really high nitrogen 15 content on the bones that is being found or has been found in these regions. So firstly that. Secondly, we have many things written about what our ancestors used to eat before the Second World War, because that's what Ansel Keys found here in Greece was a disastrous situation after the Second World War, so the 50s and 60s, where it was a solution, this diet these days. So the legumes or our national dish indeed is bean soup. Fasolada is the name of the dish. That doesn't mean that we eat only fasolada, or that we used to eat fasolada. We have many data that shows us that we've eaten something else. And so it was a fiscal problem that has to be solved these old days. And the other thing is that you said, I posted in my internet, as in my Instagram social network, I posted a video about what did our ancestors used to eat our ancestors. For example, at the beginning, we've started with bone marrow. And I've asked who of you have already tried bone marrow, and everybody they have written already, everybody has written already, my parents used to eat bone marrow. My parents used to feed me with bone marrow, used to explain to me that it's the thing that you always have to eat because of the vitamins, etc. And that's the thing, that we've lost our path. Even we lost our path. So historically, I think our tradition is based on ranching, on fishing, on cheese making, for sure, even meat curing. Everything that we eat, you've experienced it. Our yogurt is really delicious. It's really plain. I think the real Mediterranean diet, it's another thing. It's not the thing that they are selling or they suggest currently.
Okay. Yeah. And like you said, I had some of the yogurt there, the sheep's milk yogurt, and obviously I had quite a bit of the lamb was very heavily featured there. Of course, great seafood. And so I was able to very easily do a carnivorous diet while I'm there. Now, when I was talking to you, said you were just starting to set up practice in Athens as you gotten back from Germany. Where are you in that process? Mm-hmm. Have you started accepting patients yet, or where are you at with that?
No, I haven't started yet. I have some things to organize, but the plan is that I'm going to open a medical practice, as you say, with an internal medicine practice. It's like a GP here in Greece. And my main target is to hit the initial problem, the problem that caused the disease. As you already know, you do it with Revero. to help patients to understand that the thing that brought them to the problem, it's not their genes, it's not their, and the solution is not to be a medication. It's not the lack of medication your problem. It's not the deficiency of a pill your problem. Maybe I'm going to suggest pills for the beginning in order to alleviate pain or to help. But at the end, the thing that to this point is the lifestyle. So we have to change the lifestyle, and it's already known, and it's the first recommendation in all guidelines, evidence-based guidelines, change in the lifestyle modifications. So it's going to be at the first a medical practice, but secondly, I'm going to, and I organize already, I'm going to bring together people that we're going to have a lifestyle modifications network. So a network where physicians, so healthcare providers, not only physicians, medical doctors, but dietitians, physiotherapists, different areas, we're going to come together and we are going to give a solution to these people that they want to change their lives with lifestyle modifications approach. And mostly it's going to be a low carb approach, depending on the problem. It's not, and depending on the problem and the needs of the patient and the mentality of the patient, if you want, we cannot do the same. It's not the panacea for everybody, but a low carb approach is going to be for metabolic disorders, a very low carb approach to like a carnivore approach, maybe much more of elimination approach, extra deficient or low in FODMAPs and lectins and all these things that can trigger IBS. So it's going to be a really open-minded approach and flexible approach according to the problem, depending on the mentality of the patient. And firstly, medical practice. Secondly, for sure, a network. And as third, I would say I like to make up a tribe, a community where people can meet each other and exchange opinions, not only in a scientific way, but as people that they understand, they want to change. For example, maybe filmmakers, and they can attribute to the whole thing, maybe, or unquestionably, butchers can play a big role, and I've seen it already, that they can contribute to the whole thing. I think you've experienced that yourself already. And and that's the thing with physicians at first, but the community is going to be greater and bigger and greater, at the end. So at first I have a gastroenterologist, neurologist already. I've gathered dietitians like Apollonas Kapsalis. It's one of the first that spoke already about carnivore approaches, low carb approaches, and has so much knowledge and so much to bring.
Yeah, that's Apollonas and Roberta, who put on a little Greek resort that retreat that I was able to meet you at. They've been doing some good work in Greece. What do you think? Have you seen, how long you've been observing this, but have you seen a decline in the overall health of the Greek population over the last several decades? Are we seeing more and more obesity, more and more chronic disease? Is it, because obviously in America it's at epidemic proportions. And when I was in Greece, I didn't see as much obesity as I do here at home, but certainly it's starting to creep in. But is it generally getting worse there?
I'm pretty sure we follow you. If someone looks at the gathered data of, you can see 50% they're obese here in Greece of the adults, or 40%, I think, and 50% of the adults has for sure a chronic disease. That's where I'm pretty sure. And I think that it's the way it runs in your country, it runs in our country too. We follow the same diet. We follow the same sanitary lifestyle. I would say 80% is the diet, 20% is the not moving or lack of movement in our lives. I would say yes. It's a multifactorial, for sure, cause, but the diet is the cause. And we have a big problem. And most people, there are medication, for example, for arterial, for high blood pressure, like I was. And we have a big problem. We have to find a solution. And the solution that is suggested, like this Mediterranean diet, I think when the problem is already here, we have to bring the solution from the other side. We have to turn their whole thing on the other side, because this Mediterranean diet it's a moderation. It's a diet of moderation, and we do not need a moderation. If I'm going to give you a pill, I'm not suggesting you to make a moderation. You really make a change. I'm trying to optimize everything in your body. So we have to optimize everything. We cannot take the moderation road. We have to take the extreme road, the road that, because all used to say to me that carnivore is extreme. It's not extreme. It's maybe the best anthropological, biological, evolutionary ecosystem diet for us. And we have to do this optimization and not moderation. So the diet that they already suggest, or mostly suggest, because we have to say that there is in the guidelines, or from the American Heart Association or from the American Diabetes Association, they suggest a very low carb and a very low carb approach. So it's not only Mediterranean diet what they suggest. It's really important to note, to mention. And this Mediterranean diet approach is already been done historically. So the ancient Egyptians, they didn't have any sugars, they didn't have any processed food, but they did have whole grains, they did have vegetables and fruits, they did have not so much meat, they avoided meat. Maybe it's a little bit controversial, maybe they did have seed oils. So I think it's already tried. It's already tried in the population. They did have big problems with obesity, with cardiovascular diseases. We know it already from the CT scans, from one big study from Mami's CT scans. And we know already about the diseases that they used to have from the status with the gynecomastia. I think it's not the solution. It's not the solution. Maybe it's a good solution, a Mediterranean low carb approach for a guy that it's not already ill, it's not already impaired, but it's not for ill people, really unhealthy people that they're not healthy.
Yeah, I've said, and that's an interesting point you make, that we don't treat people with medical treatments in moderation. We don't say, take a pill a couple times a week and blah, blah, blah. It's consistent maximizing the effect of that. And I always tell people, if you want to make a big change in your health, you need to make a big change. Moderation may not get you there. And same thing with diet. I think it's important to do what's going to provide you the most benefit at a time. It's interesting you brought up some of the statues with gynecomastia. People aren't familiar with that term, males developing breast tissue. And that's seen back in antiquity. You see some of the statues from ancient Greece, and they're showing these males that are out of shape for some reason. We often think of we see statues of the Greek gods where they're athletic, and you've got the Discobolus and some of these other things where they're athletic, but you also have some of these indications that maybe there was some metabolic compromise even back in ancient times. And if you look at the diet, I know like we can go into perhaps the diet of the Egyptians, which there was some interlap, a lot of grain-based dieting, lots of maybe over-consuming the fruits and the honeys and things like that. What is the thought behind why those statues show these sort of unhealthy effects?
I think you mean why in ancient Egypt we have these statues. That was the normality these days, I think, the old days. And it was not among the slavers, it was among the pharaohs and all the people that they were leading in these old days. They had the opportunity to eat more, to eat plenty of food, okay, calorie overconsumption. But the thing is, from what you eat. Do you eat from a food that has really good to energy ratio, like meat? It's a good food, or is it grains and bread? So I read about it for the first time from Apollonius during the Greek Ghost Keto, that we ancient Greeks called the ancient Egyptians, so the bread eaters. So that's important to know that I think the ancient Egypt had a different diet if we compare them with the ancient Greeks. That's why we don't have so much from these unhealthy features in our status, whereby someone can argue that the status, they're perfectly made, or it's a cultural thing and they wanted to. But I think in the antiquity in Greece, we didn't used to have so big problems. We used to eat, as we've already, that's really interesting, pigs too, but mostly ruminants, not only the Greeks, but the Romans too. So the Hellenistic period. And the ancient Egyptians, they had this diet that is being suggested from all the nutritionists, so a nirvana of the today's nutritionists, with whole grains, with honey, a big amount of honey, and veggies and fruits. I think that was the problem. And they were metabolical and not healthy like we are these days. These are features. As an internal medicine physician, if I see a patient coming in my practice, I can, in 5 seconds, you can do the same thing as I can do it really good. I can understand if he's metabolical healthy or not. Yeah, we have these markers, bio indicators for problems like this, and other problems like blood pressure, but we can see that his gynecomastia is a distance. Many isoflavones, for example, they play a big role there. Maybe I don't know exactly.
Yeah, and you mentioned I think you said you found a gastroenterologist and a neurologist. I know you said there's not a lot of physicians in Greece that are certainly doing carnivore or even low carb. Do you feel that you'll have some support for what you do, as far as, obviously you're going to benefit a lot of patients, and I think a lot of the word of the mouth. Athens is a big place, and there's, I don't know how many, 5 million people or 6 million people in Athens. So you'll have no doubt that you'll see people getting better. And so I think you'll probably get quite a bit of traffic for your practice. How, one of the problems, at least in America, where you're practicing medicine, is you don't really have any support to implement lifestyle stuff. You send somebody to a dietitian and they're going to give you basically the food pyramid. They're not really going to make much of a difference, particularly when you go for low carb. And you don't have time in your practice a lot of times because you're on this sort of almost like an assembly line of patients every 15 minutes pretty religiously. How do you plan on implementing this? Are you going to do something like a conference? How do you plan on maybe utilizing this in your practice? Have you thought about that?
That's really interesting that you mentioned it. That there's this big problem of from the whole healthcare system in America, in Germany, in Greece too. We have to see the patient for 5 to 10, maximum 15 minutes if he's a new one, and then we have to go to the next patient. And for a patient with chronic disease and multi-morbidity and problems in all places, we have to give time. So firstly, I'm going to give more time to the patients. It's going to be another approach where I have to give time. Secondly, we're going to have a follow-up of the patient. So we're going to have maybe an on-time follow-up. I've started with the diet, or I've started with this movement or exercise, and I have this and this, or I have loose stools, or I don't know what. So we have to give support immediately to the patient. That's going to be really difficult if we're going to go on and make us even greater and bigger as medical practice. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we're going to follow the patient and construct a health coach environment for the patients. I have already had a training in the health coach, and I believe on it really that can support every patient. It's not only doctor, it's not only the dietitian, it's not only maybe the psychologist that we have already in our community, in our network, sorry. It's going to be a health coach provider that it's going to follow the patient. Have you done that? What should we change? How can we individualize everything for you? Make it smoothly for you, everything. That's the first thing. The second thing, sorry. So firstly, invest more time to the patient. Secondly, health coach approach. And third thing is that we have to build this community. That people have to take part in communities where we discuss about things. We discuss about the management of your diabetes or their diabetes or pre-diabetes, and build groups like a pre-diabetes, a metabolic disorder group, or diabetes, manifested diabetes group, and or autoimmune diseases group, where we can speak about the things that we should avoid, for example, eliminate or try this or try that. Or maybe at the beginning speak about some supplements that they can bring us in the right pathway, where I have to say I target to get away, to take off the patient of every medication, if it's doable, of every medication that you can imagine. And it works. So that's the thing. That's how we build the whole thing.
Yeah, it definitely, community is definitely such an important thing, because let me talk about resources in Greece, because obviously food is a big part of that. How hard is it to get a low carb diet in Greece for the people who have never been there? I didn't think it was particularly hard, but do you think it's going to be an issue for anybody?
Oh, no, for sure not. It's not going to be an issue. It's the easiest thing to do is really cheap here. I find myself really easy to follow my diet. And I have to say, it's obviously I'm not following any diet. It's the way I eat, but it's really easy for me. I go out. We have here markets and butchers we have the main market. We can find food for a carnivore, not a keto lover, a guy who follows, or a patient who follows keto, but a carnivore diet. With 15 euros, we can feed for sure one person for 3 days or 2 to 3 days. Not you, not such a person, but me for sure. So it's really cheap. It's easy to follow, I think. Yeah, maybe the many patients already, Greeks, explain to me that maybe it's a little bit limiting on summer because they want to eat or drink something more refreshing. Without it, after 3 or 4 months after this process of adapting in this kind of way of eating, most of them say it's not a problem anymore. But if some people need something refreshing, they can add some low carb variants, possibilities like fruits without so many carb content, strawberries, etc. And I think it's doable. It's for sure doable. We shouldn't find excuses the whole time. We should try to change, as you say, big changes. It's the time, not yesterday, not tomorrow. Yesterday, we should have done it like days ago. It's always the motto, and it's the easiest way to feed ourselves, and it's a unique way too. It's not, you don't have to think about it. You start with it. You start eating meat. When you're done, you're satisfied. You can stop. You can add some veggies. You can stop wherever you're full. It's simple and it's doable in Greece, I think. Yeah.
Now, you have an Instagram channel, which I follow, but I don't understand a word of it because it's all in Greek. So I've watched it. I'm sure I've sometimes clicked on the translation to see what you're saying. But how has that been received within the Greek population? I know Apollonius has got the biggest sort of keto channel in Greece, I think. Do you find you're getting a positive feedback? Is it a negative feedback? What kind of response are you getting to what you're doing, your efforts on social media?
Okay, at the beginning, so the first I had to say only haters. So I started with all the already you can imagine, and I have a personal question for you. After that, I soon forget to ask. And at the beginning, I had only haters. The channel is like only 2 months old, but after those 2 to 3 million followers, 1,000 followers, or comments, the whole time they understand that it's a different approach. It's more approach against cause. Firstly, we try to investigate the whole thing together. I'm open-minded. They ask me things, I ask them back. With real questions, and we try to find the solution. How it could be that fats, for example, are bad for us? How could it be that fats cause diabetes primarily? So we have an open discussion. I think even these days already, I have the followers from Apollonius, for example. After the first 14, 20 days, they've understood that there is a doctor who specializes in these approaches. And I have many really positive things to comments these days. And that's the thing that a doctor wants to hear about, to listen to. I want to experience such things like, yeah, you seem like a good doctor who wants to take another approach. So that medicine is fun again for me, I have to say. Because after all these years first in the intensive care units and emergency rooms and etc., but in the medical practice in Germany, with this simple approach, always curing the symptom, I haven't had any good results. And with this approach, I see the results. They see themselves the results. So it's maybe not so good business because you lose the patients. You don't see them again. Because after 1 to 2 months, or even many patients 1 year, maybe you're done with them. They're done with the diseases. They don't need a specialist. They don't need a GP. They don't need anybody. They found the way they should feed themselves, and that was it. I think it's a good decision. But I had to see. I had to practice it here in Greece because I've made it in Germany too, parallelly. But I had to practice it here in Greece, and I'm going to come back to you and explain to you. But I want to ask something I didn't want to forget. So it's something personal. I related to. And you've written in a post that your goal in life is to help get as many people healthy as possible and off drugs as possible. And you have 50% chance that you will end up in prison or dead. I understand what you mean, and I can relate it to. That's the thing that I'm a little bit frightened too. So what's your approach to the whole thing? What did you mean? And how do you cope with the thing?
I don't know. That's obviously a guess. But there are resistance to what we're trying to do. It's a sad thing that people profit on other people's illness. And if you start getting millions of people happy, then you're taking money out of other people's hands. And people have been known to do some pretty nefarious stuff for money. So hopefully that never happens. I'm saying that more or less just as ways of awareness that we're going up against some powerful entities that may not like us to do that. So you need a lot of support on your side. We live in a world where sometimes people do very bad things. Nonetheless, even though we're going against the grain and we're going against vested interest, it's still worth doing, because I think to not do that is wrong, particularly when you know what the right thing to do is. And then it's like they said, evil triumphs when good men stand by and do nothing. I think it's like I said, I've seen the results of this. I can't unsee it. And I feel just compelled that I have to do my part. That's why that's why I became a physician in the first place. It was in theory to help people. And if you know how to help people and you don't do that, then are you living up to your sort of Hippocratic oath that we took as doctors going back to ancient Greece? It's something that I think is very important. And like I said, I certainly I don't want to end up in prison or dead, but you're going up against vested interests and you never know what's going to happen. But despite of that, like I said, before you came on, I said it's very courageous what you're doing because you're one of the first people in Greece to promote certainly carnivore, but even some of the low carb keto stuff is still very much at the forefront. And anytime you go against the grain, you always run the risk of being ostracized and made into some sort of pariah and socially. Hats off to you and continued success on that but I think we are making a difference. I've seen just in the time I've been involved in nutrition in the last decade or so, I've seen the pendulum turning and more people accepting this and seeing this. And I think, again, at the end of the day, it's going to be the will of the masses that will prevail. And I think if enough people are convinced that this is what we need to do, then that's what's going to happen ultimately. Because the corporations only benefit from our willingness to give them money, give them whatever, our treasure. And when we're no longer willing to do that, they've got to shift. Either they become obsolete or they shift to provide for what people are wanting. Thanos, thank you. I unfortunately, we're running out of time. I've got to go to another meeting. It was a pleasure. Good luck to you. I'd love to hear an update on how things go once you get your practice up and running and see your first successes, and wish you the best. And hopefully I'll get to see you guys sometime down in the future next time I'm in that part of the world. So thank you. Thank you, Thanos.
Thank you for having me. You're always welcome in Greece. Always welcome, please. Thanks to the whole organization. You're really kind.
Yeah, it was a beautiful part of the world, and I certainly enjoyed my time there. So everybody else, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now.